What is up, guys? So I am back home, as you can see, and today we're going to finish off Hesiod's The Works and Days with part 2, and this is going to complete the whole work. So the thing I noticed, I will say, is that it goes into more agriculture tips, but towards the end is some really good life lessons. So definitely stick around if you're not interested into how to grow crops and the best advice on that, because he does give some life lessons that really do stand out. And towards the end of it comes what to do on the 20th and the 1st and stuff you've probably seen memes of and stuff on Facebook. So this is it, the end of Hesiod's The Works and Days with part 2. So put on your soft outer cloak and fringed tunic and have an abundant woof woven across a light wrap. Put this on so that your hairs will stay quiet in their places and not bristle and stand up shivering all over your body. Upon your feet tie shoes made of this hide of the slaughtered ox. Have them fitted well and line them with felt on the inside. Take skins of the firstling kids when the cold season is upon you, and stitch them together with the sinew of an ox, for a cape to put over your back and keep the rain off. And on your head you should wear a hat made of felt, to keep your ears free of water. Daybreak is cold at times, and when Boreas comes down upon you, and at dawn there comes down from the starry sky, and spreads all over the land a mist helping growth for fortunate men's cultivations. You know, as I read this, I wonder who was Perseus. Obviously the brother, but it's like he has to tell him to wipe his own butt, basically. So it's like, does this guy know how to do anything? And that's kind of the attitude it kind of comes across. So this drawn up from rivers that flow forever, and mounting to a high level over earth on the turn of the windstorm, comes down in the form of rain towards evening sometimes, but sometimes blows as the wind when Thracian Boreas is chasing the thick clouds and it beats the weather. Finish your work and get on your homeward before the darkening cloud from the sky can gather about you and soak your clothing through to the skin, leaving you wet through. Better keep out of its way for all months. This is the hardest, full of the stormy weather, hard on flocks, hard on people. And at that time the oxen should have half rations, but men more than usual, for the night adds up and are longer. Keep all these warnings I give you as the year is completed and the days equal the nights. Once more the earth, mother of us all, bears yield in all variety. Now when Zeus has brought to completion 60 more winter days, after the sun has turned in his course, and the star Arcturus, leaving behind the sacred stream of the ocean, first begins to rise and shine at the edges of evening. After him, the triple crying swallow, Pandion's daughter, comes into the sight of men when spring is just at the beginning. But there be before her, prune your vines, that way it is better. And when house on back the snail crawls up from the ground onto the plants escaping Pleiades, it's no longer time for vine digging. Rather time to put an edge to your sickles and rout out your helpers. Keep away from sitting in the shade or lying in a bed till the sun's up. In the time of the harvest, when the sunshine scorches your skin, this is the season to push your work and bring home your harvest. Get up with the first light so you'll have enough to live on. And dawn takes away from work a third part of the work's measure. Dawn sets a man well along in his journey, in his work also. Dawn, who, when she shows, has numerous people going their way. Dawn, who puts the yoke upon many oxen. And when the artichoke is in flower, and the clamorous cricket sitting on his tree lets go his voice of singing, that issues from the beating of his wings in the exhausting season of summer, then is when goats are at their fattest, and when wine tastes best, and women are the most lascivious, but the men's strength fails them. It's funny. It's a lot of good gardening tips. So it's interesting to see how they would do it and how they would refer to like the snail as the one with a house on his back. Most for the star of Sirius shrivels them, knees and heads alike, and then the skin is all dried out on the head in the heat. Then at the season, one might have the shadow under the rock, in the wine of Byblis, a curd cake, all the milk that the goats can give you, the meat of a heifer bred in the woods, who has never borne a calf, and a baby kid also. Then too one can sit in this shadow and drink the bright shining wine, his heart satiated with eating, and face turns in the direction where Zephyrus blows briskly. Makes 3 libations of water from a spring that keeps running forever and has no mud in it, and pour wine for the 4th libation. So here we go. So there's an offering right there. So again, I'll read that part real fast. Facing the wind, thus blowing briskly, make 3 libations of water from a spring of clean water. And then pour wine for the 4th libation. So rouse up your slaves to winnow the sacred yield of Demeter at the time when powerful Orion first shows himself. Do it in a place where there is a good strong wind, on a floor that's rounded. Measure it by storing it neatly away in the bins. Then, after you have laid away a good store of livelihood in your house, put your hired men out of the doors and look for a serving maid. With no children, as one with young, to look after as a nuisance, and look after your dog with the sharp teeth. Do not spare feeding him. So the man who sleeps in the daytime won't be getting at your goods. Bring in hay and fodder so that your mule and your oxen will have enough to eat and go on with. That's kind of funny, going back about saying that you need a good dog to keep people away from your stuff. Then when that is done, let your helpers refresh their knees and unyoke your oxen. Then when Orion and Sirius are come to the middle of the sky, the rosy-fingered dawn confronts Arcturus. Then, Perses, cut off all your grapes and bring them home with you. Show your grapes to the sun for 10 days and for 10 nights. Cover them with shade for 5, and on the 6th day press out the gift of bountiful Dionysos into jars. So that's how you make wine. Then after the Pleiades and the Hyades, and the strength of Orion have set, then remember again to begin your seasonal plowing. And the full year will go underground, completing the cycle. But if the desire for stormy seagoing seizes upon you, why, when the Pleiades run to escape from Orion's grim bulk, duck themselves under the misty face of water. At the same time, the blasts of the winds are blowing from every direction. Then is no time to keep your ships on the wine-blue water. Think of working your land instead, as I keep telling you. Haul your ships upon dry land and make an enclosure of stones about it, to keep out the forces of wind that blow wet, and then plug so the rains of Zeus will not rot the timbers. Take all the tackle that's rigged to the ships and lay it indoors, neatly stowing the wing of the ship that goes over the water. Hang the well-wrought steering oar over the smoke of the fireplace, and yourself wait for the time when to come when a voyage is in season. Then drag your ship down to the sea and put your cargo that will be suitable for it, so that you can bring home a profit, as did my father and yours too, O Perses, you great fool, who used to sail in ships, for he wanted to live like a noble. And once on a time, leaving the kime of Aeolus, he came here. And in his black ship, having crossed over a vast amount of water, it was not comfort he was fleeing, nor wealth, nor prosperity, but that evil poverty that Zeus gives to men for a present, and settled here in Helicon, in a hole of a village. Ascra, bad in winter, tiresome in summer, and good at no season. As for you, Perses, remember the timely seasons for all work done. But remember, it is particularly about seafaring. Admire a little ship, but put your cargo in a big one. The bigger the cargo, the bigger will the profit be. And if only the wind holds off the harsh gales from it. But for wind, turning your easily blown thoughts towards a merchant's life, you wish to escape your debts and unhappy hunger, I'll show you the measures of the much thundering sea. I, who has much knowledge of ships and sea voyages, for I never did sail a ship in the wider water except from Euboea, from Elis, where once the Achaeans stayed the storm and gathered together a great many people from sacred Hellas to go to Troy, the land of fair women. And there I crossed over the Chalkis from the games held in honor in Galliant and Phaedamedus, for the sons of this great-hearted man had set out many chosen prizes. There I can claim I won the contest with a song and took off an aired tripod. In this I set up as an offering to the muses of Heligon, where they first had made me a master of melodious singing. So this is my experience with the bolted ships. But still I can tell you that the thoughts of which aegis-bearing Zeus for the muses have taught me to sing immortal poetry. For 50 days after the turn of the summer solstice, when the wearisome seasons of the hot weather goes into conclusion, then is the timely season for men to voyage. You will not break up your ship, nor will the sea drown its people, unless Poseidon, the shaker of the earth, on his own volition, or Zeus, the king of the immortals, wishes to destroy it. For with the rest of the authority for all outcomes, good or evil, at that time the breezes can be judged, and the sea is untroubled. And at that time, trusting your swift ship to the winds, you can draw her down to the sea at will, and load all your cargo inside of her. And make haste for the sake of the early homecoming. And do not wait for the season of new wine and the autumn rain and the winter coming out, and the hard-blowing south wind, who comes up behind the heavy rains that Zeus sends in the autumn, and upheaves the sea and makes the open water difficult. This is one of the sailing seasons for men in springtime. And at that point, when you first make out of the topmost branches of the fig tree, a leaf as big as the print on the cow makes when he walks. And at the time also the season is navigable, and this is called the spring sailing season. I, for my part, do not like it. There's nothing about it that I find pleasant. It's snatched, and you'll find it hard to escape coming to grief. Yet still, even so, men in their short-sightedness do undertake it. For acquisitions means life to miserable mortals, and it is an awful thing to die among the waves. No, rather I tell you to follow with all your attention as I instruct you. Do not venture your livelihood into hollow ships. Leave your greater part ashore and make the lesser part cargo. For it is awful to run a disaster in the waves of the open water, and awful to put an overwhelming load on your wagon and break the axle and have the freight go to nothing. Observe measures, and timeliness is the best in all manners. So now he's going to give him advice on marriage. So you are the age to marry a wife and bring her home with you when you are about 30, which is interesting. A lot of people, that's a good age to get married, actually. I'm going to stop here and say something. So even now, they say to live your life till you're about 30. I mean, you can get married before then, because a lot of people do. But I've always heard that 30 is a good age to get married, because you've had enough of a life, and now you're more mature and ready to take on a spouse and a partner. So that's actually advice that stayed to modern day, because I've heard that before. But not all of this advice is going to be relevant or modern. All right, so you are the age to bring a wife. You are about 30, not being many years short of that mark, not going much over. So that age is right for marriage. Let your wife be full grown 4 years and marry in the 5th. Better marry a maiden so you can teach her good manners. And in particular, marry one who lives close by you. Look her over well first, and don't marry what will make your neighbors laugh at you. For while there's nothing better than a man can win himself than a good wife, there's nothing more dismissal than a bad one. That's true. You are lucky when you get a good partner. Not necessarily a wife, but a partner. And nothing more miserable than getting one, and it is just hell on earth, basically. So that's actually really good. One that eats them out, And even though her husband be a strong man, she burns him dry without fire. Interesting. And gives him to a green old age. Always observe a due regard for the blessed immortals. Do not put off some friends on equal terms with your brother. So now he's giving good advice. We got out of the agriculture part of this work, and now we're getting back into morals and life lessons. So always observe a due regard for the blessed immortals. Do not put some friend on equal terms with your brother. But if you do, never be the first to do him any injury. Do not tell lies for the sake of talking. If your friend begins it by speaking some disagreeable word or lying, or do some injury, remember and pay him back twice over. So don't just let it go. This is not turn the other cheek. This is saying if they do you wrong, do him wrong twice over. Then if he would bring you back into his friendship and propose a reparation, take him back. A mean man's one who is constantly changing friend for friend. That's true. Do not let appearances confound perception. Do not be called every man's friend. Do not be called friendless, nor companion of bad people, nor one who quarrels with good ones. Never be so hard as to mock a man for hateful, heart-eating poverty. That's a gift given by the blessed immortals. Never make fun of people who are having a hard time, because you never know. They always say karma comes around and everything. So definitely you don't mock and make fun of people who are hard on their luck. The best reserve of sources that man can have is a sparing tongue, and they are best liked when that goes moderately. Control what you say, people. That's basically what he's saying. If you say a bad thing, you may soon hear a worse thing said about you. Never be disagreeable at a feast. And where many guests come together, there's good feelings greatest. Expense is slightest. Never from dawn forward pouring a shining libation. Here we go. Here is the most famous quote out of Hesiod's The Works and Days, probably, that everybody quotes. Never from the morning forward pour a libation of wine to Zeus or any of the immortals without washing your hands first. When you do, they do not hear your prayers. They spit them back at you. And then he goes on to say, never stand upright and make water facing the sun, but only remember when he has set or before his rising. Nor do it when you are on the road, nor yet turning out from the road, nor showing yourself. For nights belong to the gods or the blessed ones. A devout man, one who has learned the right way to do things, will huddle down or go to the wall of a courtyard enclosure. Do not, when in your house, ever show yourself near the hearthside when you are physically unclean, but keep away from it. Do not, when you come back from an ill-omened burial, beget children, but when you come from a feast of the immortals. Never wade through a pretty ripple, a perpetually flowing river, until you've looked at the lovely waters and prayed to them. Interesting. And wash your hands in the pale enchanting water. For if one wades a river unwashed of hands and unwashed of wickedness, the gods are outraged at him. So there's one thing that no one ever mentions, that you're not even supposed to touch the oceans or the rivers and stuff without first washing your hands and stuff. So never wade through the rivers without unwashed hands, or the gods outraged at him. So see, people don't talk about that. And give him pains for the future. Never at a happy festival of the gods cut off the dry from the green of the 5-branched plant with shining iron. Never put the wine ladle on top of the mixing bowl when people are drinking. This brings bad luck with it. Never, when you are building a house, leave rough edges on it, for fear of a voracious crow may perch up there and croak at you. Never take up without an offering a piece of pottery and eat or wash from it. This is a forfeit on these also. Never let a 12-year-old boy sit on anything not to be moved. Better not, it makes a man lose his virility. Nor a 12-month boy, for this will work in the same way. A man should never wash his body in water a woman has used, For there is a dismissal forfeit that comes in time also for this act. Nor if you chance on sacred offering burnings, must you make fun of the rites. The god naturally resents this, so never make fun of someone that's doing an offering or ritual, because that's the gods are not happy when you make fun of someone giving ritual. Never make water into the outlets of the rivers, meaning the sea, nor in the springs, but altogether avoid this, nor plunge in them to cool off. It means no good if you do this. And do as I tell you, and keep away from the gossip of people. Never gossip. For gossip is an evil thing by nature, and she's a light weight to lift up on, and oh, very easy, but heavy to carry, and hard to put down again. So, life lesson again, you said gossip is never a good thing. Gossip never disappears entirely once many people have talked her big. In fact, she is really some sort of goddess. Observe the days that come from Zeus, all in their right order. Explain them to your workers, that the 13th of the month is the best for supervising workers and for doling provisions. And here follows the days that come to us from the counselor, Zeus, when men who judge their true natures can observe them. First of all, the 1st and 4th and 7th of the month are holy. It was on this last day that Leto gave birth to Apollo of the golden sword. Then the 8th and 9th, 2 days in each month. And as it waxes and are excellent for mortal labors, the 11th day and the 12th day too are both very good days, either for shearing sheep or for reaping the good harvest. But on these 12th days is far better than the 11th, for it is the 12th that the air-flying spider weaves her web in the full of day, and the know-all, the ant, piles her dirt hill. On this day, a wife can set up her loom and get working. In the waxing month, the 13th day is to be avoided for planting seeds, but it's the best for transplanting seedlings. The 6th of mid-month is very unfavorable for plants, and for the good of the birth of males, but not for girl children, either to be born in the first place or to go to their marriage. Nor is the early 6th either suitable for a girl child to be born, but for the gedling kids and lambs, and for putting an enclosure around the sheepin. It is a day of kind propitious. Fine too for a boy born, but he'll come one who is fawning of a teasing, and telling lies and flattering speeches and beguiling sweet talk. So these are also famous as well, talking about what's good on each day of the month. So I've heard these before, and we're almost done. And on the 8th of the month, it is time that the gild, the boar, and the bellowing bull, and the hard-working mule should be done on the 12th day. And on the 12th and 20th, in a full day, a man who will be learned should be born. For one on that day is well and armed with brains. So if you're born on the 20th, you are a really smart person. The 10th is fine for a boy-born child to be born, or for a girl child, the 4th of mid-month, on which day you should gentle your sheep and your horn-curved shambling cattle, sharp-toothed dog, and hard-working mules by stroking them with the hand. But be very careful on the 4th of the waxing, the 4th of the waning moon, to avoid troubles that eat out the heart. And for this day he has great authority. And on the 4th of the month, bring your wife home. Only first watch out for the birds sign most favorably to this business, which is talking about there was a divination back in the past of the flight of the birds, and the direction the birds would fly would tell you yes or no, or just an omen or not. Beware of all the 5th days. They are harsh and angry. It was on the 5th day, they say, that the Erinyes assisted at the bearing of an oath, whom strife bore to be a plague on those who took a false oath. And on the 7th of mid-month, after looking carefully all about you, throw down the holy grain of Demeter on the well-rounded floor. And it is time for the carpenter to cut the house beams and all the many timbers that are required for shipbuilding. And on the 4th, one can begin putting the narrow ships together. The 9th of the mid-month grows better towards the evening, and the 1st 9th is altogether free of harm for men. And for it is a good day for either man or woman, either to beget or to be born. It is never truly a bad day. For now that the 27th of the month is the best day, for starting of a wine jar, or putting the yoke on the necks or the oxen of the mules, swift-footed horses, also for hauling a fast ship with many locks down to the wine-blue waters. For there are many few who call true things by their right names. And on the fourth, open a wine jar, and the fourth is surpassing sacred in mid-month. Few again now know that any day after the 20th is best in the dawning, but in the late day it grows less good. These are the days which greatly advantage earthly people, and the others are full of vain noise, ineffective, and produce nothing. And every man will have his favorite day, but few know about them. A certain day is sometimes a stepmother and sometimes a mother, but that man is fortunate and blessed who knows all these matters, goes on with his work, innocent towards the mortals, watching all the bird signs, and keeping clear of transgression. And that is Hesiod's The Works and Days that you guys have heard about so much. So let me give you my thoughts of this. All right, so my thoughts of Hesiod's The Works and Days. So it has a lot of interesting things in the work. I always got a kick out of him talking his brother down. And like, kind of like I said on part 2, is like, who was his brother that it seemed like he didn't know anything, like Hesiod had to tell him how to do everything. So the picture for this video is accurate, kind of the guy talking while the other one is sleeping. That's accurate in more ways than one. So what I think of Hesiod's The Works and Days is that it really has some good life points, and it's got a lot of gold in between, a lot of things that would not be relevant for someone that's not interested in wine bearing, farming, or how people did things in the past. It's interesting to see who he attributes certain things to certain gods, and the most gold you get out of it is when he talks about the worship of the gods and how to live life. Not when it comes to the the agriculture stuff and digging up the crops. That's not as important now as whenever he talks about offerings and rituals and prayers. So with that said, I think that for most people that would read this book that have heard about it, because you see on the 5th day, it's good to do this, and man should not do this on the 12th day and all that stuff. When you see stuff like that, that's towards the end of the book. And in the middle of it, as you've heard, if you've stayed with me through part 1 and part 2, it's a lot of stuff about agriculture. And it can be a lot to wade through. For the average person, I can see people that were wanting to pick it up because they thought it would have a lot on relevance on the gods and stuff. And they kind of get lost because when it talks about tilling the dirt and all that stuff, you might lose you. But in the beginning, and at the end, it has a lot of good stuff I really enjoyed. But even you can tell while I was reading it, when he was talking about farming, it's like reading a farmer's almanac in a lot of ways. So it's definitely worth picking up because I've read it and there's a lot of quotes that people still use, as I said. There's views on women and children and men that is kind of funny when put on the lenses. You put on today's glasses and you look and you're like, that is not how people see things now. But still, it was interesting to read it and say that I read it. I do have theogony, and that is the more interesting of the two, in my opinion, because it talks about the genealogy of the gods and fully focus on the gods. So we may read that if you guys want to check out The Works and Days. I'd say check it out, and because it does have some good things, and it's good things to have in your collection. And we may, like I said, read Hesiod's next work in another video. Don't know when, maybe soon or later. But there you go. Anyway, guys, I'm glad you did check it out. And if you're watching this, that you saw part 1 and 2, hopefully. And I will see you later, guys.